Just when you thought we might have finally seen the last AM4 processor, AMD goes and bins yet another new variant. And this is kind of what people have been asking for, though not exactly. What people really wanted was for AMD to go and start making the 5800X 3D again, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. And instead we have the new Ryzen 5 5500X 3D. Okay, so what is the Ryzen 5 5500X 3D? Well, it's a binned version of the 5600X 3D. That's a CPU that most of you probably didn't know existed, or if you did, you might have forgotten about it, because the 5600X 3D was a US exclusive. In fact, it was a bit more exclusive than that. It was a Micro Center exclusive. Today's video is brought to you by Ugreen and their brand new FineCam Pro 4K AI webcam. The FineCam Pro features a 1/2-inch Sony sensor, which delivers crisp 4K video up to 30 FPS, while also being capable of 60 FPS at 1080p. It has exceptional low light performance while also supporting gesture controls, which are becoming popular amongst modern webcams. Phase detection autofocus ensures snappy, precise focusing, and autoface exposure works as an intelligent fill light, keeping your face well lit in less than ideal lighting situations. The FineCam Pro also houses a dual mic array, providing an all-in-one audio-visual solution for those who like a minimalistic setup, as well as a built-in privacy cover for instant protection. Among many other features, this camera also has 7 built-in filter modes and supports a vertical orientation, perfect for mobile content creation. If you'd like to learn more about Ugreen's FineCam Pro 4K IO webcam, check out the links and discounts in the video description. So, I guess the next question is, what was the 5600X 3D? Well, it was a cut-down version of the 5800X 3D, released way back in July of 2023. It was essentially a 5800X 3D, but with 2 of the cores disabled, resulting in the first 6-core, 12-thread 3D V-cache processor. And I did manage to get one of them from the US, and as expected, it's not really a great deal slower than the 5800X 3D. It's around 8% slower, which isn't bad given there are 25% fewer cores. The 5500X 3D, on the other hand, well, it's a 5600X 3D with reduced clock speeds, cutting the maximum boost frequency from 4.4 GHz down to just 4 GHz, and that's a 9% reduction. Otherwise, they're pretty much identical, so 6-core, 12 threads, 96 megabytes of L3 cache, and a 105-watt TDP. Unlike the 5600X 3D though, the 5500X 3D is not a US exclusive. It was first released in Latin America exclusively, but it quickly appeared in China, and now it's popping up in places like the UK. At present, it can be delivered to Australia from AliExpress for 260 Australian dollars, of course, which is about what we're paying locally for, say, a Ryzen 5 7600, and it's roughly 20% more than the Ryzen 5 5600X. So, given that, I'm interested to see how well a 4 GHz 3D V-cache AM4 processor performs in games, especially given a part like the 5600X is clocked 15% higher. And for testing, we do have 14 games to go over, and we have quite a lot of comparative data, so we should probably just get into it. Actually, before we just get into it and check out all the blue bar graphs, here's a quick look at how the 5500X 3D behaves under load. When faced with a heavy all-core workload, we saw an average clock frequency of 3.95 GHz, and with just a single core active, we saw a maximum clock frequency of 4.05 GHz. So everything here is operating within spec. So onto the gaming, and we'll start with Rainbow Six Siege. The new 5500X 3D looks pretty underwhelming here, it has to be said, only roughly matching the 5600X, making it around 7% slower than the 5600X 3D. Still, if you happen to be stuck with a Zen 2 processor, the 5500X 3D was 42% faster than the 3800X, and then 67% faster than the Zen Plus based 2700X, so some pretty big gains are on offer there. Next up we have Battlefield 6, and in this title, the 5500X 3D was 15% faster than the 5600X, allowing it to roughly match the Core Ultra 5 225F, and interestingly, it was also able to basically match the 5600X 3D, coming in just a few frames slower. Then when compared to the 3800X, it was 31% faster, and then 63% faster than the 2700X. The Arc Raiders results look great, as this game really benefits from AMD's 3D V-cache technology. And we see that here with the 5500X 3D, which managed to pull ahead of the 5600X by a massive 30% margin when using the medium settings, though it was just 18% faster with the epic settings. This also meant that it was 8% slower than the 5600X 3D when using the medium settings, and then 11% slower with the epic settings. The Borderlands 4 performance was quite good, coming in just 6% slower than the 5600X 3D when using the medium preset, which made it 5% faster than the Core Ultra 5 225F, 16% faster than the 5600X, and a massive 40% faster than the 3800X. Then when switching to the GPU limited Badass preset, it matched the 225F to come in 7% faster than the 5600X. Moving on to Marvel Rivals. Here the 5500X 3D was 8% slower than the 5600X 3D when using the medium settings, and then 12% slower with the ultra settings. That's interesting because it also meant that when using the medium settings, it was 12% faster than the 5600X, but with the ultra settings, just 8% faster. So the 5500X 3D is struggling a little more with the ultra settings, but even so, it's still 26% faster than the 3800X here, so a great potential upgrade option for those Zen 2 owners. Baldur's Gate 3, like Arc Raiders, is a game that benefits from 3D V-Cache technology, and as a result, the 5500X 3D was 28% faster than the 5600X, so a huge increase in this example. It was, however, around 10% slower than the 5600X 3D, suggesting that core clock frequency is very important for this game. Memory bandwidth also appears to be quite important, especially for strong 1% lows, and this is why the DDR4 chips struggle when looking at 1% lows compared to those using DDR5 memory, like the Core i5 14600K for example. Now, an example where core clock speed appears to be less important is in Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, because here the 5500X 3D is able to almost match the 5600X 3D. Not only that, but the 5500X 3D was just 8% faster than the 5600X when using the medium preset, though enabling ray tracing does increase that margin out to 12%. Next up we have Counter-Strike 2, and this is another example where the 5500X 3D is able to mimic 5600X 3D like performance, coming in just a few frames slower. And that made it 18% faster than the 5600X when using the medium settings, and then 14% faster with the very high settings. It was also substantially faster than previous generation AM4 processors, beating the 3800X by a massive 77% margin, and the 2700X by an insane 126% margin. The Space Marine 2 performance is also very good, coming in just 6% slower than the 5600X 3D, to beat the 5600X by an 11% margin. The 5500X 3D was also 31% faster than the 3800X, and almost 60% faster than the 2700X. The 5500X 3D trailed the 5600X 3D by a 6 to 7% margin in Mafia the Old Country, making it 13% faster than the 5600X when using the medium settings, but then just 5% faster with the maxed out Epic preset. Even so, with the game maxed out, it was still 20% faster than the 3800X and 46% faster than the 2700X. Moving on to ACC. This is another title that performs exceptionally well with AMD's 3D V-Cache, and although the 5500X 3D was 8% slower than the 5600X 3D when using the medium preset, that did make it 27% faster than the 5600X, and a whopping 43% faster than Intel's Core Ultra 5 225F. Then, if we look all the way back to the 3800X, the 5500X 3D is seen to deliver 75% greater performance and an insane 109% performance uplift from the 2700X. Spider-Man 2 is a memory bandwidth heavy game, so the DDR4 parts do struggle a little bit here relative to those that can utilize DDR5, but even so, 156 FPS on average with the medium preset is great performance from the 5500X 3D, though that did make it 10% slower than the 5600X 3D, despite offering 16% better performance than the standard 5600X. Enabling ray tracing didn't yield the best results, but still, over 60 FPS for the average frame rate, it's decent. Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered played very well on the 5500X 3D, with performance that was generally comparable to the Core Ultra 5 225F. In short, it was 6 to 8% slower than the 5600X 3D depending on quality settings, and 16 to 17% faster than the 5600X. You're also looking at a 35% increase over the 3800X and 64% over the 2700X. Finally, we have The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, and in this example, the 5500X 3D was 5 to 6% slower than the 5600X 3D and 9 to 11% faster than the standard 5600X. It was also 37% faster than the 3800X and 70% faster than the 2700X. Okay, here's the 14 game average data, and as expected, the 5500X 3D was 7% slower than the 5600X 3D, which was seen when using both the medium and ultra quality settings. It was also just 13 to 15% faster than the 5600X, so not exactly a worthwhile upgrade for those who already own a Zen 3 processor. But if you happen to be still hanging out with a Zen 2 processor, or maybe something even older, and you do require better gaming performance, then the 5500X 3D is going to be on average 40% faster, or at least 40% faster, which is a huge upgrade. And if we go from something like Zen Plus, for example, we're looking at a massive 71% performance increase in this particular matchup. And for those of you interested, I've also added average data for a few more CPUs for the data that we have, such as the 5800X 3D, for example. The 5500X 3D was on average 14% slower than the 5800X 3D and 17% slower than Intel's new Ultra 5 250K+. For anyone looking at building a brand new gaming PC, the Ryzen 5 5500X 3D won't really be of interest. Once you factor in the price of a motherboard and of course the memory, even if the memory was priced, let's say, a bit more normally, spending what amounts to 260 Australian dollars on the 5500X 3D just does not seem like a great investment. For example, the Ultra 5 250K+ costs just 23% more locally, and while it was only 20% faster on average for gaming, it is a much more powerful processor. So if you plan on doing much outside of gaming, core heavy work for example, it is going to be a night and day experience. And that is to say, the Ultra processor is going to be miles faster. Alternatively, for a more gaming-focused discussion, the Ryzen 5 7500F was on average 4% faster for gaming, but it can be purchased at a local retailer for $270, and that's just 4% more than the AliExpress price for the 5500X 3D. But worse still, you can purchase the 7500F for just $180 delivered to your door from AliExpress if you're an Australian, making the 5500X 3D 44% more expensive from the same source. And that being the case, at present, the 5500X 3D makes no sense for new system builders. But if you happen to still be on AM4, using an older generation Zen 2, Zen Plus, or maybe an original Zen processor, the 5500X 3D, even at 260 Australian dollars, it could be a very tempting deal. And yeah, look, the 7500F, it's cheaper and therefore arguably the better investment, but that investment does require an AM4 owner to purchase a new AM5 motherboard along with DDR5 memory, and right now, the memory component is a deal breaker. Spending 260 Australian dollars to get at least 40% more gaming performance still seems like a good deal to me, and I suspect there will be quite a few AM4 owners who missed out on the 5800X 3D that'll be interested in getting themselves a 5500X 3D. But I still think for the 5500X 3D to end up being something special, it will need to drop down to 200 Australian dollars. As for those of you who already own a Zen 3 based processor, perhaps a Ryzen 5 5600 or the 5600X, the 5500X 3D won't be worth considering. The performance uplift simply isn't great enough to justify the investment. And with that, I'm going to end the video. If you liked it, you know what to do. Subscribe for more content, because, you know, maybe there'll be another binned AM4 processor that we'll be able to purchase and review in the near future. But we do have a lot of other content coming up anyway. We're not going to sit around waiting for AMD to do that, though it probably won't take that long based on all the binned variants we've seen to date. But yeah, if you want more Hardware Unboxed goodness, we have the join button or Patreon. Signing up to either one of those things will give you access to our exclusive Discord server, monthly live streams, Q&A stuff, and behind the scenes content. So check that out if you're interested. If not, it's perfectly fine. And I would like to thank you for watching this video. I'm your host, Steve. See you again next time.